thank you all for coming. This is a great turnout, and I think it's, you know, one of my definitions of madness is somebody that would actually buy the Grolier Poetry Bookshop. Talk about swimming upstream. I still marvel at it, and he keeps his beautiful demeanor, and he keeps smiling, and good luck to him. But we're hoping that this will inaugurate a series of thematic events, madness just being the kickoff point. So this is chapter 12, part of chapter 12 from the Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. And I'm going to be followed by Lois Ames, who actually wrote a piece in here about the author. So,
introduction.
No, she actually wrote, someone else wrote the forward.
Really? It's actually at the back.
Right.
For most editions.
Most editions.
Dr. Gordon's private hospital crowned a grassy rise at the end of a long, secluded drive that had been whitened with broken quahog shells.
Quahog.
Quahog shells. Right, I want the quahogs over here.
Quahog. That's who's been quahog.
Now, what look like somebody that can be easily abused? Please. As my mother and I approached, the summer heat poured down on us, and a cicada started an aerial lawnmower in the heart of a copper beech tree at the back. The sound of the cicada only served to underline the enormous silence. A nurse met us at the door. "Will you wait in the living room, please? Dr. Gordon will be with you presently." What bothered me was that everything about the house seemed normal, although I knew it must be chock full of crazy people. There were no bars on the windows that I could see, and no wild or disquieting noises. Sunlight measured itself out in regular oblongs on the shabby but soft red carpets, and a whiff of fresh-cut grass sweetened the air. I paused in the doorway of the living room. For a minute, I thought it was a replica of a lounge in a guest house I visited once on an island off the coast of Maine. The French doors let in a dazzle of white light. A grand piano filled the far corner of the room, and people in summer clothes were sitting about at card tables and in the lopsided wicker armchairs one so often finds at down-at-heel seaside resorts. Then I realized that none of the people were moving. I focused more closely, trying to pry some clue from their stiff postures. I made out men and women and boys and girls who must be as young as I, but there was a uniformity to their faces, as if they had lain for a long time on a shelf, out of the sunlight, under siftings of pale, fine dust. Then I saw that some of the people were indeed moving, but with such small bird-like gestures I had not at first discerned them. A gray-faced man was counting out a deck of cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought he must be seeing if it was a full pack, but when he had finished counting, he started over again. Next to him, a fat lady played with a string of wooden beads. She drew all the beads up to one end of the string. Then click, 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 she let them fall back on each other. At the piano, a young girl leafed through a few sheets of music. But when she saw me looking at her, she ducked her head crossly and tore the sheets in half. My mother touched my arm, and I followed her into the room. We sat without speaking on a lumpy sofa that creaked each time one stirred. Then my gaze slid over the people to the blaze of green beyond the diaphanous curtains, and I felt as if I were sitting in the window of an enormous department store. The figures around me weren't people but shop dummies, painted to resemble people and propped up in attitudes counterfeiting life. I climbed after Dr. Gordon's dark-jacketed back. Downstairs in the hall, I had tried to ask him what the shock treatment would be like. But when I opened my mouth, no words came out. My eyes only widened and stared at the smiling, familiar face that floated before me like a plateful of assurances. At the top of the stairs, the garnet-colored carpet stopped. A plain brown linoleum tacked to the floor took its place and extended down a corridor lined with shut white doors. As I followed Dr. Gordon, a door opened somewhere in the distance, and I heard a woman shouting. All at once, a nurse popped around the corner of the corridor ahead of us, leading a woman in a blue bathrobe with shaggy, waist-length hair. Dr. Gordon stepped back, and I flattened against the wall. As the woman was dragged by, waving her arms and struggling in the grip of the nurse, she was saying, "I'm going to jump out of the window! I'm going to jump out of the window! I'm going to jump out of the window!" Dumpy and muscular in her smudge-fronted uniform, the wall-eyed nurse wore such thick spectacles that 4 eyes peered out from behind the round twin panes of glass. I was trying to tell which eyes were the real and which the false eyes, and which of the real eyes was the wall eye, and which the straight eye, when she brought her face up to mine with a large conspiratorial grin and hissed, as if to reassure me, "She thinks she's going to jump out of the window, but she can't jump out of the window because they're all barred." And as Dr. Gordon led me into a bare room at the back of the house, I saw that the windows in that part were indeed barred, and that the room door and the closet door and the drawers of the bureau and everything that opened and shut was fitted with a keyhole so it could be locked up. I laid down on the bed. The wall-eyed nurse came back. She unclasped my watch and dropped it in her pocket. Then she started tweaking the hairpins from my hair. Dr. Gordon was unlocking the closet. He dragged out a table on wheels with a machine on it and rolled it behind the head of the bed. The nurse started swabbing my temples with a smelly grease. As she leaned over to reach the side of my head nearest the wall, her fat breast muffled my face like a cloud or a pillow. A vague medicinal stench emanated from her flesh. "Don't worry," the nurse grinned down at me. "That first time, everybody's scared to death." I tried to smile, but my skin had gone stiff, like parchment. Dr. Gordon was fitting 2 metal plates on either side of my head. He buckled them into place with a strap that dented my forehead and gave me a wire to bite. I shut my eyes. There was a brief silence, like an indrawn breath. Then something bent down and took hold of me and shook me like the end of the world. "Whee! Whee!" it shrilled through an air crackling with blue light, and with each flash, a great jolt drubbed me till I thought my bones would break and the sap fly out of me like a split plant. I wondered what terrible thing it was that I had done.